Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're interested in joining the podcast, please consider sharing your story. Tell us your favorite story, whether something crazy happened on the court, whether it was funny, entertaining, terrifying. Did somebody get arrested? That's always a fun one. Hopefully that never happens on the tennis court. And let's go to letsgotennis.com/my story. It's /my story. That is how you get there. There are no links on the site. This is something specifically you're going to type in. letsgotennis.com/my story. Tell your story. You'll be entered for every story. You'll be entered into our monthly giveaways and our end of the year giveaway, which should be a lot of fun, but I'm not telling you yet. Today, this is the last episode, Dave, the last and final episode of our 6-week series, Can My Kid Play College Tennis? With Dave Matthews. This is part of our Friday Conversations with Dave. And this will be the last time we talk about this specifically in this series. And today we are going to answer the question. Well, we're going to tell you how you can answer the question. Because if you're asking that question, can my kid play college tennis? There are 3 things we want you to do. Okay, and we're going to talk about each of these 3 things. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what they are right now. Check your child's UTR. We'll tell you why and what that's going to do for you. Talk to your child's coach. Ask them the question. If you walked, hey, Coach Dave, can my child play college tennis? Maybe you're here because you didn't like the answer, but they're going to know, or at least be able to give you an idea and find out if they have a plan. If they don't have a plan, maybe find another coach or take a second look at, can my kid play college tennis? Third, talk to your child. I probably should have put that first, Dave. Can we talk about that first? Talk to the child and say, do you want to play college tennis? Is this my dream? I'm a tennis guy. I'd love for my kid to play college tennis. But what if he doesn't want to? That's my question to you, Dave. Like, how do I have that conversation with my child, aside from all the work that it's going to take and that it's going to take when we get there, that we talked about last week? How do I talk to my kid about this?
I think initially, and this is just from 40 years of coaching, I think initially, kids get into tennis, whatever age, could be 6, 8, 10, 12, somewhere in that ballpark. Can there be a late bloomer? Yeah, but, guys like me are not walking around too often. I hate to say that, but it's true. I was a late bloomer and I started late. So it was a catch-up thing for me, but I welcomed it. In today's society and over the last 30 years, you've got these things called Alta leagues, USTA leagues for the juniors, things like that, Alta Challenge Ladder, things like that, that hopefully as a kid coming up, first thing they do is take some private lessons or group lessons, then, or vice versa, whatever order they come in. Then they're going to get onto an Alta USTA team, probably, for a season or 2, things like that. If they accelerate and all of a sudden, the pro, whoever they're working with, starts getting them into a few tournaments, they start getting this thing called a ranking, whether that's UTR, USTA, on the tennisrecruiting.net, by getting the stars, which are 5-star, and then a blue chip. All that is part of the process. As you move up, I would say once your kid starts winning, like now you're going to talk about level 7s and 6s. Once they start doing a fair amount of winning at the level 6 level, they're going to look at probably starting to weed out, here we go, the irons in the fire, pulling a USTA or Alta team iron out of the fire, because that's time. That's 7-week commitment on the weekends. That's usually a practice during the week, along with whatever group lessons you got along the way or academy. So time becomes a factor. You start drawing, irons out of the fire so that you can make more time to get better quality play, practice, whatever. At that point, I would guess your kid is probably somewhere around 100 to 50 in the state rankings, somewhere, that's a good general guesstimate. if they're struggling to get into the top 100, then you probably just answered that question a lot of it. But but I'd say by 12 or 13 years old, if they're somewhere between 150 and they're drawing that iron out of the fire like a USTA, we're not going to play USTA this season, or Alta, or both, and we're just going to start concentrating on tournaments, that's when you sit down with your coach and say, what's reality? What really am I looking at? This conversation we've had about, the 5 a.m. workouts in college, things like that, they don't need to start happening now, but the schedule needs to get full with not only working out off court, but also, a little more intensity on the court. And then you've got to schedule in recovery time, because recovery time includes studying, eating, icing, things like that. Because if that motor breaks down, you go into a deficit that you lose everything you gained 4 times faster than you gained it. So you're now, a month off for sickness, for injury, whatever, is usually worth about 3 months of work that you've just lost, because the conditioning, it goes away. Your atrophy sets in like that. So, I would say right there around that, 10, 12-year-old, look for rankings, look for, like you said, some iron changing, taking some irons out of the fire. That's when the talk needs to start happening, because, and here's the one thing I really would look at is my kid resenting going to so many of these tennis practices, whatever they are? If along the way, Dad, Shaun, I don't feel like going today. Well, that iron might need a little bit of a vacation. Might not need to stop, but maybe a little breath of air for 4 or 5 days, something like that. Okay, let's just take it easy for a while. Then then it might be right back in there. One of our good friends, J Dubs over there in Charleston, John Williams, when he came back, when he was a senior, when he came back from his 3-year layoff, he came back and realized he could go about 4 weeks really hard, 3 to 4 weeks really hard, like drills 3 days a week, a tournament on the weekends, twice a month. And then that 4th week, especially if he didn't do the 4th, the 5th week, he shut down for 4 days straight. Didn't touch a ball, might go out for a light jog, but that refreshed him. That got him ready to go again. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't look for recovery time of, we call it vacationing at our age, but it's rejuvenation of yourself. It's, a little rest. I heard somebody the other day say, if you don't lay on the couch 1 day a week, you're pushing yourself very hard. You got to be careful. And it is true. It is true. I've done that before. And it's dangerous. It really is, mentally and physically dangerous. But I understand, the road is never paved. It's never smooth,
Sometimes I wonder if I have a couch.
I got one, but I sit in it and now I'm up and gone again.
I get up, go find something to do. But so how do I have that conversation though when I look at the kid, because we both enjoy the movie, the parenting movie,
Sure.
Searching for Bobby Fischer. And,
Oh, yeah.
and it's about it's that response in the same thing. One of my favorite movies in oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the movie. Space movie, Matthew McConaughey, where his daughter gets in trouble at school. And he's like, you know what? There's a baseball game this weekend. I think I'll take her to that. It's like I need to get her out of this feeling, and that the parenting of that is one thing. For us to come in as parents and say, all right, kid, here's what we need to do. That's if we're paying attention, and that's if we have a good idea and a good relationship with the kid, that we know pretty much what needs to happen. However, how do I talk to them? So maybe 10 or 12, they're not really fully capable of saying, okay, Dad, yes, let's discuss my future. They're not really capable of that yet. But hey, Giovanni, my son. Hey, Giovanni, what do you want? What would you love? If you could pick one thing to do right now, what would it be? All right, then what? Then what would we do? And find out what is it? We want to pry out of our children what they really enjoy at that moment. How do we do that as the parent? Because maybe that's beyond tennis. That's just a life question as a parent, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just a life question. Like I said, we've talked about this in past, in 2 or 3 podcasts ago about the irons in the fire. If you've got, let's say, 4 irons in the fire, Shaun is good at chess. He's got chess club, 1 day a week or whatever. And then he studies a little bit on the weekend. I get it. He pulls up his computer, plays a chess game occasionally. That's good. Then he's got tennis. Then he's good at math. Let's say 3 or 4 things. He's good at computers. Okay, good. Somewhere in that road of like I said, 10, 12, 13 years old, somewhere in there, one of those 4 are not going to look so energetic every time. Hey, Shaun, hey, my son, Shaun, why don't we give this one a little bit of a break? Let's, here we are in the winter quarter. Tennis is not one of your mainstays right now. It doesn't seem like you're so, let's just take off a month or 2. Let's just take off a month and see what happens. And we'll concentrate on your chess, your math, your computer, and let's go with those for, maybe a month and see what happens. Hey, I think that is the best way, especially with I don't want to say immature, but yes, a young adolescent adult or young adolescent kid, just to take a break is not something that sounds finite. It's an offering of, hey, let's just get a breath of fresh air. Let's let up on the schedule 1 notch out of 4. So it gives you a chance and the kid a chance to really see, do you miss it? Mm-hmm. If you miss it, February, let's go. Hey, Dad, toward the end of January, hey, Dad, hey, Shaun, I really miss tennis. Can we go back to that? I miss some of my kids. Okay, one thing is your friends are there, and that's one thing. But if you miss tennis, that's what I want to hear. And if you go back, hey, let's take another one of those irons and give it a month rest and see what happens. And one of them, they're not gonna come back and say they want to go back. Let it lay.
Yeah, I like that idea, and that allows me to just have that conversation with my child, because that's the most important thing. You as a parent can go talk to the coach all you want to, and the kid's sitting in the car going, I wish I wasn't playing tennis, but you're out there planning your child's future.
Right.
And maybe you're missing what really is more important, which is your relationship with your child. And I think we're not talking about tennis anymore. But once we do that and we have that conversation, we say, okay, this is good. Now I need to go to the coach and let them know, let that coach know, hey, by the way, and this is why I want to talk about the UTR specifically. So you're going to look at the USTA rankings as well. So I also have, okay, my kid's 50. What's it take to get him to 25?
Right.
And in that case, that's a system that the coach should have an idea of saying, okay, well, you need to do this well in these tournaments, more like the professional tours where it's points per win, where UTR is points per win over a specific opponent. Right. And either one is fine, but in my case, I know a little bit more about the UTR currently. So if I go to Coach Dave and I say, all right, Geovanni, we're going to go talk to Dave, and we're going to say, okay, right now you're 10 years old and you're a 6 UTR. Okay, we've got some time. That's really good. You're a pretty darn good little 10-year-old, right? You can hit the ball. But where do we need to be by a certain time and say, I'm going to call Billy Pate at Princeton and say, okay, you got to be at 11.5 for them to even talk to you. I'm not sure that that's the number, but whatever that number is, right? Sure. I want to go to Citadel. I want to follow in the footsteps of the great John Williams, right? Okay, well, what did he have to be? UTR didn't exist at the time, but what do you have to be just to call them up and say, hey, Mr. Citadel, I'd like to play for your school. I'm a 10.5. And if they say, well, call me when you're an 11, go to the coach and say, how long does that take and what does it take? Right. And there are a few questions within that as well, Dave. One, tennis isn't free. Now, practice is free. So if Geovanni is a 6 and he's going to go play with his buddies and he's going to go practice, he might be able to get himself to a 7 on his own with practice over X months. So there's something we know, practicing gets you better. But absolutely. Often you're going to need coaching, especially at that young age. They're not always self-motivated and they can't drive themselves to play with their friends across town. Sure. So there are limitations there, but there's also a financial limitation. The coach isn't free. So I need the drilling. I need those other kids that are there. I need the tournament schedule. I need that periodization. I need somebody to help me with my fitness. Not everybody's got the money. to get their kid good enough to play college tennis. So there is
Right.
a little bit of that. So how do I go to the coach? If I'm going to come to you and say, okay, my kid's a 6, he's 10, we got some time. Can we look at it and say, okay, he needs to be at 11 by the time he's 16, whatever that number is. Is
Sure.
that a good way to look at it? To say, I'm going to go to the coach and say, here's my overall plan.
Yeah. And you're going to like this. You're going to like this answer I got because we just did it. Okay. You ready? Then you're going to sit down and you're going to, before you go into that meeting, you're going to already write down on a piece of paper 7 days. And this is what little Shaun is doing over 7 days. And then you're going to say, like Kobe Bryant, you're working out an hour and a half a day, 4 days a week in high school. And what would happen if you went to 3 hours a day for 4 days a week? What's going to happen over the next year?
My math grades are going to slide.
Maybe, but it depends on how many irons you've got in the fire already.
This is true.
If you are thinking about going to that 11 and having colleges, your mailbox, your email filling up with offers, you've got to be willing to let go of some irons quick, because focused time practice equals getting better. Growing up, I had nobody. I took my first lesson when I was 19. No drills, I'm serious. No drills. I mean, grew up in a little bitty town of 40,000. We had 4 courts. Who was I to practice with? Whoever drove up. And I would watch people critically and see what made Shaun look better not look better, but what made you more efficient and functional than me. I could take what I think I look. Go ahead.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
I'd like to point out. So if you're going to say you took no tennis lessons until you were 19 years old?
There was none in my city.
So there was no coach running drills?
Nope. None.
So, and you have world champion on a trophy somewhere.
Oh yeah, downstairs.
Downstairs. Okay. So I just want everybody to stop and think about that for a second. Okay. Now, not everybody's 6'5" and has whatever magic Dave has. So there's a genetic component to it. You weren't 6'5" at the time, at the younger ages, and I get that.
Right.
But practice is so important. If you're going to go out and really put your time in, and sorry for interrupting, but I think this is something people need to realize. Sometimes it is free, and free, I mean, didn't cost your parents a lot of money to get you there. And I don't think your parents had a periodization plan, and they weren't discussing how to get you to play college tennis by the time you were X age. It was just, hey, where's Dave? Oh, he's out on the courts. Where's Dave now? Oh, he's out on the courts.
Absolutely.
Is your kid that kid? Is your kid that kid? And in that case, the answer is probably that they can play college tennis. So I apologize for interrupting, but that just seems to me like a really important scenario to say, you know what? A wall. Go hit on a wall. How good can you get? How many hours did I spend banging up against my parents' garage door, driving the rest of the house crazy because maybe I didn't have anybody to play with at the time, but it was just something I really wanted to do. It was the same thing with basketball in the driveway. Is that your kid, or are they off doing something else? Which iron are they poking the fire with? And as we say, right?
And that's part of that, taking an iron out of the fry pan, out of the fire along the way, and just test the water for a month and see if that's what they like. If it's what they like, they will holler within about 2 weeks. Dad, I really miss chess, or I miss math, or I miss this. And then if it's their friends, okay, it's kind of the subject, but kind of their friends. Can you suffice the friends somewhere else and let the subject go? That's your question as a parent, okay? And that can happen. But yeah, I mean, I got a video one time of Bjorn Borg, why he retired at 25. And what people didn't realize was he was playing, like Alcaraz, first on the tour, at 18, 19? Bjorn Borg started playing at 15 on the world tour. And they don't realize that at 25, he'd been doing it for 10 years. And he basically said, I'm tired of a hotel room. You eat at a nice restaurant, you go to a hotel room, you go to practice court, you go to hotel room, you go to recovery, you go to hotel room. I'm tired of it. And I get it. I get it. And so, I saw that, and then I took a few pictures when I went home about 4 or 5 months ago on a trip down there to South Georgia, and we had a little wall on our fence of the tennis court, a 10-foot fence, but the little wall was only, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 feet high. You had like 2 feet below it and about 2 or 3 feet above it. I couldn't hit that damn wall to save my life. I'd hit the fence. I'd hit it over the fence. I'm like, well, about, I don't know, 30 or 40 yards across the road, which it was at the end of like a cul-de-sac area. There was a drive that went over, and it was an old part of our city. We used to have like a carnival area, and there were 2 bowling lanes that were there way back there before I was born, but they had torn them down, and there was a retaining wall about 30 feet high with a flat concrete base to it. I would hit overhead.
Tennis players' heaven.
Oh, I can't hit it over that wall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but I would actually, that's what people would say to me when I was like 17. Why, how come you never miss an overhead? I said, because I practiced them on that wall. Hit it in the ground, it would go back up and ricochet up, and then I hit another one and another. And you learn to control it so that you didn't have to run. So that's the kind of thing that I did, because it was what was available. It cost me an arm and a leg, and people don't get that. They think everything nowadays has got to be scheduled or cost a lot. And I'm like, you're missing it. You're missing it. We got a nice hill right there where I coach. And I look over there and I see football players running it, but I don't see any other athletes running it that it would help, and I'm like, my tennis players, this is explosive speed right here. You want to get a better serve? You have no idea how many mountains I've climbed on my bike. That's exactly what this is. It's explosive speed to get up off that ground. Oh, you can't get my serve back. Oh, I can't imagine why. You're never with me when I'm riding the hills going up in North Georgia on my bike. So now I know why. But, that's what Kobe preaches is you have to work out harder, more intense than your opponent to beat them.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so to summarize,
sure.
And the question, can my kid play college tennis, is a parenting question. And yes, we're looking at their future. We're trying to help them out. My father looked at me when I got hurt playing soccer because my plan was professional soccer. I was just a tennis player on the side because I was kind of athletic. But I got hurt playing soccer. And so my father said, all right, what are you going to do to pay for college? And I thought, oh, crap, I guess I better pick something. And I was 13, so I was even a little late to say, well, I guess I better get actually good at this a little bit and see if I can help pay for college. I think my father just wanted me something to do so I wouldn't get myself in trouble. But again, it's a parenting scenario. It is, what do you want that's best for your child? So one, I'm going to do them backwards because I think it's most important. One, talk to your kid. Talk to your kid. Make sure they want it. Go back and listen to episodes 1 through 5. Make sure they want it. Go back and look at how to choose the Junior Academy series to say, where are we going to go? How far are we going to go? How much do you care? Right. Because there's also a financial question of that is, what can you afford? Is your kid out there on the wall, on the retaining wall, on the driveway, doing whatever it takes because they're addicted. They're addicted. They love it. Yeah. 2, check your child's UTR and ranking. Find out where they are. Do an assessment. Find out what they are. Take that to your coach or take that to a coach if you're not sure if your coach has a plan. If you're going to Coach Joe Tennis Pro, as I call him, you're going to Joe Tennis Pro, and he's not really sure how to help, or he gives you kind of an answer that sounds like he's just kind of making stuff up, find a coach, somebody else, go to 2 or 3 coaches and say, hey, you know what? And by the way, pay this coach. If he's not your coach and you're not already in the program, offer to pay that coach for an hour and sit down with him. Because these coaches, this is very, very good information. And do you walk up? People do this all the time. They walk up to the tennis court. Hey, coach, can I talk to you for a bit? And we're in the middle of a lesson going, no. Yeah. No, you can't. I'm busy because this is my job. Let me stop into your office. You're an accountant? Okay, yeah, let me stop into your office during business hours and we'll talk about your kids' tennis and maybe we'll think of it that way. But even offer to pay them. Hey, I need 15, 20 minutes. Here's $20. Yep. Can I run by you my kid's UTR, my kid's ranking, or even if he doesn't have any of that, self-taught. I think of a Greg Goki type. He was a kid that I coached 20 years ago, never
Right.
took a lesson as well, ended up playing singles on a 6A high school team because
Yep.
he just played with everybody over and
Yep.
over and over again. Parents weren't going to invest in his tennis, so he did it.
Yep.
He did the hard work himself.
Yep.
You know, for me, my parents were willing to suffer in other ways
Sure.
to invest in my tennis. So go to
Right.
your coach with that information, ask them, but most importantly, I go back to number one, talk to your kid. Can my
Absolutely.
kid play college tennis? The real question here is, in my opinion, should they? Should my kid play college tennis? Listen to what they have to say, pay attention, you'll figure it out. Dave, I stole the ending. I apologize.
No problem.
We'll talk again next week. I appreciate it. Thanks,
You
Dave.
bet, man. Have a good day. Bye bye.